Hey there, this is Ari. Welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. With me today is Dr. Tracy Gapin, who is a board-certified urologist and men's health expert who focuses on providing high-performing men with a personalized path to optimizing their health. He incorporates precision hormone optimization, peptide therapy, biometric tracking, epigenetic coaching, and cutting-edge age management protocols with his 20 years of men's health experience as a urologist. Dr. Gapin is passionate about helping men not just optimize their testosterone levels, but transform their health and vitality and actually reverse aging so they can be the most amazing version of themselves. So I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey, thanks so much, Ari. I'm really excited to be here. And, I tell you, with everything going on right now with Corona, this is so timely and this is so important that we share this message because 90% of hospitalized patients have several comorbid issues, have chronic disease. And so anything that we can do to help optimize men's health and keep them healthy and keep them vitalized is going to keep them safe and healthy when the next pandemic comes along. Because unfortunately, this is the new norm. This is not going to be a once in a lifetime for us. I think we're going to experience similar situations like this in the not so distant future from now. Mm-hmm. So what I talk about and the strategies that I work on with my men are data-driven and personalized in the way I approach men's health. And these tools are perfect for helping men reach and achieve superhuman energy. So I love the topic at hand here. I think this ties in perfectly to everything that I focus on with my clients. So what I hear all the time, guys come in with almost identical complaints. They're tired. They can't perform, whether it's at work, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in the bedroom. They feel old. They can't focus. They can't focus on their work. They can't concentrate, and they lose productivity because of that. They want to lose weight. They want to burn fat, build muscle, and they can't. Maybe they have 10 pounds to lose and they just can't. Most importantly, they want to feel like a man again. And so how do I help men solve all those problems? Well, we help get them superhuman energy. And so first, let's talk about how we do that, or let's talk about the ways we do that, and then specifically I'll go into how we do that. So to do that, first, we need to maximize cellular function. And what I mean by that is we need to improve mitochondrial function specifically. The mitochondria is the workhorse of the cell. It's where all that ATP, all that energy is created. And so we need to do everything we can to optimize the mitochondrial function. We need to improve autophagy, which is the way I like to describe how cells take out the trash, how they get rid of the cellular debris when metabolic processes occur. And this is really critical for your cells to be revitalized and to grow and stay healthy. You need to get rid of the trash. You can't let it build up like a hoarder. You certainly need the proper nutrients and micronutrients, and I'll talk about that in a few moments, how critical these are. Next, we need to eliminate cellular damage. This means we need to do everything we can to eliminate or minimize chronic inflammation. This is the evil of all evils, chronic inflammation. It has its root in almost every chronic disease you can imagine. Chronic inflammation is there and showing its ugly head. So anything we can do to minimize chronic inflammation is going to help eliminate cellular damage. Oxidative stress, this is a key function when we look at aging as well. But oxidative stress is basically the oxidative process when your cells metabolize, when they work, when they create energy, you're left with this oxidative waste. And this stress on your body from these oxidative byproducts is critical that we remove that before it causes long-term damage. And then certainly the microbiome. I'm sure you've had several of the speakers talk about the microbiome, and we know how critically important the gut is for your health, and that those bacteria in your gut, there's more bacteria in your gut than there are cells in your body. And they are vitally important that we have a good, healthy microbiome so that they don't damage your body. And then finally, the third piece of superhuman energy to me is optimizing hormone function. And this is interesting because men come to see me all the time asking for testosterone. They'll come in and say, hey, doc, I think I have low T, or hey, doc, can I get more T? Or how do I know if I have low T? Or can you check my T? It's all about testosterone. But you know what? It's all a big lie, because men are trained to believe that it's all about testosterone and that everything they need is in that bottle or that injection of testosterone. Well, testosterone only gives you about 10 to 20% of what you need to reach your peak performance. And so what I focus on is not just testosterone, but looking at thyroid, looking at adrenal hormones like cortisol, especially with your stress response, and DHEA sulfate. Insulin, glucose regulation is so critically important for energy. And so a lot of men are near diabetic, or they have very poor insulin sensitivity. We call that insulin resistance. And so focusing on all these other hormones, vitamin D is actually a hormone. Most people think it's just a vitamin. It's a critically important hormone that is responsible for so many functions in your body that we really need to focus on optimizing vitamin D. And I'll tell you, most of the population is deficient in vitamin D clinically, not just optimally. Optimal levels, you need 60 to 80 or so to get to an optimal level. Most people are probably in their 20s, maybe low 30s at the most. And so vitamin D is a critical hormone as well. Estrogen and melatonin are hormones that are also important, that are often overlooked as well. So we need to look at all these pieces. To reach superhuman energy, you can't look at any one specific thing. You can't just optimize mitochondria. You can't just give a guy testosterone. You can't just work on autophagy. It's all these put together. But how? How do we do that? Well, these are the 6 major areas of health that we look at. And most people will talk to you in a very general one-size-fits-all approach of how we incorporate these aspects of your health in a comprehensive program. And I'm going to go through some of these basic foundational guidelines or recommendations, but I want to point out that this is for everybody. This is a one-size-fits-all approach, and I'm going to show you a different way of looking at things after I go through these. So first, nutrition. And these are things that I'm sure you've heard from most of the other speakers already, so I won't belabor these points. But nutrition, certainly a whole food, plant-based diet, focusing on foods that grow from the ground, foods that are not in plastic packages or that are not frozen. We want to obviously limit our refined carbs and sugar. We want to focus on getting good, healthy micronutrients. Hydration is so critical for energy. And we know how it's not just what you eat, but when you eat. And I've had an amazing, profound effects with intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding on helping men gain energy. That improves autophagy. It helps with metabolism, helps burn fat. So again, it's not just what you eat, but when you eat. Looking at fitness. I've seen so many men who will just go out and run a couple miles, jog a couple miles every day and think that's the answer. Well, you got to get interval training, high intensity interval training. You have to do some strength training if you're going to have any success. Certainly you do need some aerobic exercise mixed in there as well. But what I find for energy, most guys are not getting nearly enough interval training and strength training. And certainly compliance is a big issue. A lot of guys, they find reasons to not exercise, to not work out, or they're so busy at work, they just can't. And so compliance is really important as well. Sleep is absolutely vital for good energy. And we look at, sleep hygiene. I know in your energy blueprint, you talk a lot about this, which I love. Getting into a regular schedule, a sleep schedule of when you go to bed and when you wake up, eliminating things that stimulate your mind before bedtime, especially blue light. I recommend meditating or reading a book for the few hours before bedtime. Avoiding caffeine anytime after noon. You should really not be drinking any caffeine. And then really minimizing the EMF exposure in your bedroom. That includes electronics, especially if you have Wi-Fi on your phone, if you have a cellular signal on your phone. Even electronics like your clock in your bedroom can actually be emitting EMF as well. So focusing on all these things that can dramatically affect your sleep. And again, these are recommendations for everybody.
I actually just I've been into circadian rhythm and sleep optimization for a really long time, many years now. And I have it really dialed in, but I just kind of added one little extra notch, which is identifying the circuit breakers to the circuitry of the walls of my bedrooms for myself and my kids.
Yeah.
And turning that off every night and flipping it back on every morning, because we actually had a building biologist come out and identify, actually measure the electric fields coming out of just the wires in the wall, the dirty electricity coming out of that, even when there's nothing even plugged in.
and it's right. I mean, the mattress is right next to the wall, so your head is literally sitting in the field next to that wall. And I don't know why I slept for so many years like that, but it's such an easy fix to just turn off the circuitry of the wall every night.
Sure.
And you're sleeping in an EMF free room. The only tricky part is you now need some kind of battery operated light to like have light in the room for reading at night, and and so on. But it's a nice little extra layer of something that took me way too long to start doing, and I wish I would have done a lot sooner.
Great idea. Yeah, excellent point. Absolutely. So looking at mindset, one of the biggest issues men face is stress, and they don't know how to get around it. They don't know how to become resilient to it, and they don't know how to absorb it the right way and not let it really affect them. And I see a lot of guys with such a stress response that their energy is crushed because of it. And so focusing on mindset is really important. Breathing techniques, I don't think people realize the effect of breathing and how mouth breathing is so bad for you. People tend to overbreathe, and they tend to breathe through their mouth. And what that causes is you basically alter the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood, and that affects tissue perfusion and oxygenation, which directly affects energy. And so I spend a lot of time with men focusing on breathing through the nose, breathing slowly. We do box breathing technique. We do a lot of meditation. I love yoga and, any kind of relaxation technique to help guys get away from that stress.
It might be worth, this is a little geeky of a question, but it might be worth actually explaining the Bohr effect and how carbon dioxide relates to oxygen delivery from the red blood cells.
Absolutely.
It's kind of counterintuitive for a lot of people. A lot of people are used to thinking of carbon dioxide as just this waste product. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide because it's a waste product. But maybe you can explain that a bit.
Absolutely. I love that you asked that question. Actually, I don't want to go too in depth on that. But when you breathe, you're breathing in oxygen and you're breathing out carbon dioxide. And the key is you don't want to breathe out too much carbon dioxide, because you actually need that carbon dioxide to deliver oxygen. So what happens when the red blood cell with the hemoglobin and the oxygen attached to it goes through the bloodstream, goes from your heart down the arteries to its end organ tissue to release that oxygen, it needs something very important to release that oxygen, and that is carbon dioxide. And so you need a healthy, normal level of carbon dioxide if you're going to release that oxygen molecule from the red blood cell. And so once you understand that, it's common sense, therefore, that if you're over breathing, if you're breathing through your mouth, which tends to cause you to release too much carbon dioxide, blow out too much carbon dioxide, because you're over breathing, you're breathing too fast and too much volume, then your CO2 levels get very low. And when your CO2 levels get low in the bloodstream, that disables you from properly releasing that oxygen where it needs to go. And so it's really important that people understand that overbreathing is incredibly detrimental when it comes to tissue perfusion. So from a stress response, from an energy standpoint, from a vitalization standpoint, breathing is really critical. And that comes down to coaching. It comes down to mindset. It comes down to understanding these principles and actually practicing them. Mm-hmm. Some guys talk about taping their mouth at night when they sleep. Mm-hmm. I've done that once. It was terrifying for the first 15, 20 minutes or so, and then you get used to it. And it's pretty powerful to realize the difference between breathing normally and over breathing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well explained. And I will say I've definitely heard a number of cases of people who, just by learning to nose breathe more and mouth breathe less, it's been transformative for their energy levels. So there's definitely a subset of people for which just that one thing is a game changer.
Yeah. Great book called The Oxygen Advantage. I would highly recommend.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from mindset, we look at hormones next. And hormones, as I mentioned, testosterone is the one that gets all the attention, but we need to be sure that we optimize all of your hormones, specifically thyroid and insulin. vitamin D, and again, adrenal hormones, especially cortisol. I do a lot of Dutch testing on my clients where we can measure cortisol and measure your response throughout the day to your daily life and how that's affecting your cortisol levels. And that's really important. If you're not getting good sleep, if your cortisol levels are out of balance, there's no way you're going to have superhuman energy like you need. Finally, detox. Glutathione is the master antioxidant. It's really the main workhorse when it comes to clearing toxins from your body, free radical scavenging, getting rid of all those oxidative byproducts. Clearing out heavy metals is important. As I mentioned, gut health, focusing on a good, healthy microbiome, and that certainly ties back to nutrition and micronutrients as well. And then endocrine disruptors. I give entire talks on just that one line of how toxicants and chemicals in our environment are crushing us, specifically hormones. I give talks on how chemicals are crushing testosterone specifically. The grains, atrazine is sprayed in all of our crops. And atrazine is the second most commonly used herbicide behind glyphosate. And what atrazine does, in studies, it's shown that atrazine actually turns male frogs into female frogs that actually lay eggs and reproduce.
Wow.
It's that powerful. And these chemicals are being sprayed in our crops, our corn, wheat, and we're eating these foods. The animals, if you eat meat, the animals that we eat are eating these crops as well. It's in the plastic water bottles, BPA. One of the biggest sources of endocrine disruptors that we face is plastic water bottles. In the world, we go through 1 million water bottles a minute.
Wow.
Insane. And most of them are not recycled. And what happens is the water in our plastic water bottles will absorb the BPA plastic lining of those bottles. And that BPA has been shown to crush testosterone and crush other hormones as well. The dairy that we drink is loaded with chemicals. The cows are eating atrazine-covered crops. The cows are given hormones. The milk is being stored in plastic-lined boxes. And so there's layers and layers of endocrine disruption throughout our society. So I talk about limiting plastics, phthalates in plastics, such as food containers and, a lot of chemicals in our personal products like deodorant and shampoo and cologne, cologne's perfume, which has phthalates. So we want to eliminate the scent of all of our personal care products. And so I work with men on going through every item in their house and identifying the ingredients, because a lot of the things that they think are benign and not a problem are actually crushing their testosterone. Laundry detergent, scented laundry detergent is full of endocrine disruptors, and your clothes are washed in it, and then you wear it all day, and most of these toxins are lipophilic, which means they get absorbed through the skin, and you're bathing in them. And so society is bathing in these endocrine disruptors, and when it comes to energy, that's one of the big ones there. So these are all general ways that we can focus on optimizing health and achieving superhuman energy. But we're all different. Each of us has different, unique genetics, physiology, biochemistry, and we all respond differently to our environment. And so what I preach is a data-driven, personalized approach. And I'll talk to you now about exactly what that means and how we can use this to take a very individualized approach to optimizing health and achieving superhuman energy. We look at someone's genetics. We look at epigenetics, which I'll talk about in a moment. I use wearable technology, wearable tech like a Garmin Phoenix watch, for example, or the Aura Ring or the Whoop. All these devices help us track a lot of key biometric data that we can use and leverage and take that data to make informed decisions on a daily basis of how to specifically optimize your health. And I'll give you some great examples of that in a moment. Peptides are amazing personalized tools to optimize our health as well, which I'll get to at the very end. And then there's some other, really critical personalized markers that we use when we're looking at lab work, specifically cardiometabolic labs, looking at markers of inflammation, looking at detailed hormone panels, both blood and urine and saliva-based testing. Obviously, micronutrients, again, is critical to monitor and optimize. We can look at body composition as well, and we can see that the changes that we're making, we can actually see the effect, and we can measure that and actually objectively document that what we're doing is actually making a real objective difference. Finally, we can measure physiologic age. There's methylation tests to where we can actually measure our physiologic age, and we can monitor that over time and see that we're actually not just getting superhuman energy, but we're actually getting younger as well. And we
have
now
you done
know
that test?
I have, yeah. So it's a great test called My DNA Age, and it'll tell you your actual age. And so
I'm curious. You don't have to divulge this, but I'm curious how old they told you are relative to your actual age.
I'll share with you. Yeah, sure. So I'm 47 currently, and when I did the test, it said that I was 43.
Gotcha.
So my goal in 1 year, when I check it again, is I want to be 42.
Nice.
And so I have a benchmark now, and everything I do is focused on, optimizing every aspect of my health so that I can hopefully in a year from now get a year younger. And There's actually a great study that got published now about maybe 6 to 9 months ago, where they took men and they gave them metformin, growth hormone, which people have an issue with, that's fine, and DHEA. And what they did is they measured their physiologic age at the beginning and the end of 1 year. And what happened after that year with just those 3 interventions, these men got a year and a half younger.
Wow.
So
nice.
They gained.
How old were they on average?
They were in their 50s.
Okay.
Yeah, these were middle-aged guys, and they were not necessarily incredibly healthy to begin with.
Metformin.
Yeah, it was metformin
and growth
DHEA
hormone.
and growth hormone, exactly. And you could debate the validity of using those particular tools, but the point of the study was to show that you actually can affect change. You actually can reverse aging. Yeah. And the field of longevity now is exploding. It's so exciting to see the tools coming out, the Senolytics and other tools that we can now take advantage of.
Well, not if I'm digressing too much, we can come back to this, but I just want to get your thoughts on berberine as an alternative to metformin and growth hormone secretagogue peptides as an alternative to actually using growth hormone itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll talk about peptides at the end here. So I'll definitely share my thoughts on that. Berberine's a great natural supplement that has been shown to help with insulin sensitivity. And I love it. I love using berberine either alone or even in combination with metformin. And believe it or not, there are genetics specifically related to your risk of insulin sensitivity. And I take that into account when I look at a man's, I combine their genetics with their labs, with their lifestyle, with, what their health goals are. And for a lot of men, I will put them on either berberine and or metformin, depending. So I love that you brought that up. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So epigenetics. I love epigenetics. A lot of people don't know what it is. So let me just briefly give some background here. Epigenetics is simply the science of how your body reacts to its environment. It's changes in gene expression without any alteration in your DNA. So we all have 46 chromosomes, and those chromosomes are long strands of base pairs, and segments of those base pairs code for genes. And these genes are what produce proteins and enzymes in every aspect of your body. Every second, millions of proteins and enzymes are being produced by your DNA to serve whatever function you need. So your body, everything about you is based on your genetic expression. We used to think when I was going through college and medical school, even, we still believed that your DNA was your destiny, and that code, your code of life, so to speak, defined how you would turn out, your outcome. Well, now we know that's not quite the case. And the fact that we can change that has been proven. We can affect that by our environment. And so epigenetics is how we can change the expression of our genes. And we can do that with our environment. I'm going to give you some great examples here. And this is individualized, so for example, saturated fat may be great for one person, but it's going to be horrible for another person. And so epigenetics is not just how the environment affects your genes and gene expression, but how your unique gene expression is affected by that environment. And I'll share what I mean by that. So I like to describe epigenetics as basically a light switch that can turn on and turn off genes and gene expression simply by your lifestyle and environment. So I'm going to go through some brief examples here. Nutrition, this is the most popular one. People talk about nutrigenomics, which is how how your genes interact with your diet. ApoE is a common gene that we look at related to your body's ability to tolerate saturated fats. ApoE is how your body metabolizes those fats. And for certain variants of the ApoE gene, you do horribly with saturated fats, and you have a markedly increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and cardiovascular disease with increased saturated fat intake.
I'm an ApoE 3-4.
Okay, yeah. So you're a carrier of the 4 allele. So you are an ApoE4 carrier, we call that. And so for guys like you want to be really careful about a keto diet where, you're doing a potentially high saturated fat diet. You want to really focus on the good, healthy fats like the monos or the omega-3s, the polyunsaturated omega-3s, rather than the saturated fat for that reason. Guys like me, I'm a 3-3. I'm an ApoE3. And so for me, actually, there's really not a problem with it. Now, PPAR gamma is another gene that looks at saturated fats. And so we look at the combination of those as well as dozens of other genes related to all these areas. But these are just good examples of how you and I are very different. And so how can we talk about what we should be eating when what you should be eating is very different than me, just based on that information? So it's great to leverage this data. And this is what I mean by a personalized approach, where going back to that nutrition slide, I can't tell you what to eat without knowing your genetic blueprint and knowing what would serve you best. PLIN1 is a gene that looks at carbohydrate intake. And for some people, complex carbs, we're not talking about cupcakes and donuts and M&Ms. We're talking about complex carbs like sweet potatoes and broccoli and quinoa. Some people do very well in terms of weight loss, in terms of energy, with high complex carbs. Some people do well with low complex carbs. And so wouldn't you want to know what your PLIN1 gene shows? The FTO gene is a gene related to your hunger mechanism. People call it the fat gene. And for some people, they can't stop eating. They eat when they're not hungry because their brain tells them to eat. And so for that kind of person, it's about limiting their accessibility to food and limiting how they think about food and changing their environment. So, a buffet, for example, would be terrible for that kind of guy. The TAS2R38 gene is the sweet addiction gene. Those guys cannot eat just one cookie. They're going to eat the entire box of cookies. And so again, it's limiting access. And so understanding these can help you. What's that?
I'm pretty sure I have that one.
I feel like most of us do, right? Looking at sleep, the GAD1 gene is how our body breaks down grains. I've seen this so many times where men will come with poor sleep issues, and we come to find out that they have an issue with the GAD1 gene. Now, what this means is glutamate. Okay, the GAD1 gene is how your body breaks down glutamic acid, which is found in grains and proteins. And glutamic acid is a very excitatory neurotransmitter. It turns your brain on. And so you need the GAD1 gene to turn that glutamic acid or glutamate into GABA. And GABA is a very relaxing, soothing, calming neurotransmitter that's going to help you sleep. Well, for people who have a GAD1 variant, if they're eating grains and high protein diet intake before bedtime, how do you think their sleep's going to be? It's going to be crushed.
Yeah.
And so understanding this allows us to take a really personalized approach to sleep and not just giving, basic sleep hygiene recommendations, but really taking it to a personal level.
What would you do in a case where somebody is making excessive amounts of glutamic acid from those foods? Would you focus more on shifting the last meal of the day to be 2-3 hours before bedtime, or taking certain supplements? What would you do there?
Yeah, great question. I would recommend moving that meal earlier before bedtime, 2 to 3 hours at the minimum. But more importantly, I would really change the actual intake of what you're eating at bedtime. Mm. And so that last meal, if you're going to eat a lot of, if you're doing protein shakes or you're going to do, a lot of grains, eat them earlier in the day, and perhaps save that last meal for salad and, other foods that don't have a lot of grains, don't have a lot of high protein in them, so that it won't affect your sleep. It's trial and error. It's for guys to take this information, you leverage it, and through coaching, you figure out what's potentially causing problems and what's not.
And it's glutamic acid,
mm-hmm.
and is meat an issue here as well, or just grains?
Yes. So glutamic acid is an amino acid. And so any food that's high in glutamic acid is going to be a protein or a lot of grains. So those are the foods specifically that we look at with people who have a variant of that GAD1 gene. That's right.
Got it.
There are also genes related to circadian rhythm. The period genes and the clock genes are related to circadian rhythm. And those can help you understand if your body is made to be, early to bed, early to rise kind of guy, or if you're more of a night owl where you do better staying up late and sleeping late. I personally, I do my best work late at night. It'll be midnight and I'm powering away and my mind is on. In the morning, it takes me a couple hours to get going. And so, that ties back to my circadian rhythm. And so understanding that can help you modify your lifestyle, again, to achieve superhuman energy. Exercise. I see so many men who just get on the treadmill and walk or jog for 20, 30 minutes a day and think they're done. Well, there are genes, the PPAR-GC1 alpha gene looks at mitochondrial biogenesis and how exercise affects your body. And some people are going to do better with strength training than others. Some people are made for endurance. These genes are going to help you understand how your body and your mitochondria function. Detox, there are genes related to detox. There's the GPX1 glutathione gene, catalase, and I'm sure others have talked a lot about the MTHFR gene and how variants can really cause problems with mood disorders and psychological issues as well, sleep issues, anxiety. And then IL-6 is one that really comes into play when we look at environmental toxins and exposures and endocrine disruptors. The coronavirus. Yeah, exactly. A lot of the side effects from it are not the virus itself. It's the actual inflammatory immune response that your body has. And IL-6 is one of the big catalysts of that. And there are genes that are related to how your body produces IL-6. And there are interventions, I haven't mentioned this here, but all of these genes are interventions that can specifically help either upregulate or downregulate these genes accordingly for the desired effect. So I want to share how I take everything I've just described on a regular basis, how I take what I've just described and put it into practice in real life. So there's a case study, Tommy. He was a 50-year-old executive, uber wealthy guy, by the way, doing very, very well at work, but he's really lost his edge. He was tired. He couldn't focus. He wasn't sleeping very well. He had a beer belly going, and he couldn't get rid of it to save his life. He thought he was doing the right thing. He was one of these guys, running on a treadmill every day for 30 minutes and getting nowhere. He was eating keto and drinking bulletproof coffee and doing the Dave Asprey thing because that's what everyone else does. And he figured, I should do that too, because apparently that's what you got to do. And nothing was working. He was taking tons of supplements. He couldn't tell me why he was taking them. He just heard somewhere, bro science, that this is what he's supposed to be taking. I see this kind of guy every day. And so Tommy was not unique. So I ran his genetics. He was an ApoE4. He was a PLIN1 variant as well, where he does better with high complex carbs, which is the opposite of what he was trying to do. He was high risk for grain sensitivity, however. And his genetics showed from a fitness standpoint, he does much better with burst and strength exercise. And he was at risk for several micronutrient deficiencies and poor detox function. He also had really awful labs. His cholesterol was 447, one of the highest I've ever seen. LDL was 331, and his testosterone was 280. So what did I do? Well, I put him on a Mediterranean diet, first of all. I put him on moderate complex carbs, and I reduced his saturated fat intake. I limited his grains, as I mentioned, in the evening. He could have it earlier in the day, but certainly not anytime close to bedtime. I got him on a fitness program with interval training and strength training. I corrected his vitamin and hormone deficiencies naturally here. Didn't give him any actual synthetic hormones. And I gave him some supplements that he needed to help his antioxidant function. What do we find? This was 6 months later, okay? 6 months later, his cholesterol plummeted from 447 down to 189.
Nice.
His testosterone went up to 525. Now, I'll argue that's still not where it needs to be, much lower than where I would like him to be. And he did ultimately get much higher than this. But this just shows you, by making those lifestyle modifications, by knowing his genetics, how I can very precisely implement lifestyle modifications, we were able to get these results. Mm-hmm. He lost 12 pounds in those 6 months. He had much better energy. And I mentioned before body composition. And this is data. This is data to objectively show the effect that we had. So you'll see on the left, that shows from age, it shows his body fat. And you'll see when I first started working with him, he was 50 and his body fat was around 25%. And by the time we were done making these changes, I got him down under 20% body fat, which for him was really a massive change. On the right, you'll see that the maroon colored ones are lean muscle mass and the white squares are body fat, visceral fat, the fat that kills you. I mean, look at that massive difference. It's pretty amazing what we can do just by optimizing health with a very data-driven, personalized approach.
Nice.
So the other part of this is wearable tech. And this is the fun part that I'm kind of a geek. I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to the fun toys. This is where I employ wearable tech. And every one of the guys I work with has to wear something. If they want to work with me, they have to wear a device because it's so important to track data. Because if you can measure it, you can manage it. And so I'll give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples of how we can affect change in our stress response and in sleep. So first, let's look at stress. So heart rate variability is a very important biometric marker that we look at because it's a direct indicator of your stress level. So what is heart rate variability? Heart rate variability, or HRV we call it, is simply the variation in your heart rate from one beat to the next. So when you go to the doctor and they put on the pulse ox or they measure your pulse, it may say 80. It's not really 80. It's actually 79.98 and then 80.01 and then 80.03 and then 79.99. It's varying by microseconds every single beat. And that variation in your heartbeat from one beat to the next is HRV. And the higher the HRV, the better. That means that your body is in a very relaxed, calm, parasympathetic, regenerated, rejuvenated, vital state. Okay, so high HRV is better. Your body is able to adapt to whatever happens around it. Low HRV means you're stressed. It means you're tired, you're fatigued, your body is spent. You've overtrained, you haven't slept, you've drank alcohol, you've done something to tax your body, and your body no longer has the adaptability that it needs to respond to the environment. And so that's low HRV. HRV has a direct tie to your recovery status, to your overall health. It's tied directly to your cortisol and stress response. And low HRV is tied to a risk for inflammation and chronic disease. And so we can look at HRV on a regular basis to affect change. Here's a great example. This is another client of mine. This is information data from a Garmin Fenix watch. And so I wear the Garmin Fenix watch every day, and this is what my client was wearing here as well. What you'll see on the left is stress number. And what the Garmin watch will do is it will give you your actual stress number, which is inversely related to your HRV. So for this, the lower the stress, the better, which corresponds to a high HRV. And so my client, this was a typical day for him. He typically ranged around 18 to 22 on a regular basis. About one day a week, I would find this. His stress would spike up. Now, he didn't feel it. He didn't know it. You know, talking with him, coaching with him, you would never guess this was a problem without this data. And again, that's why the data-driven approach is so important. So we dove into, why the hell is your stress spiking up every Friday, but it's fine the rest of the days? Well, what we found out was, what did he do Thursday night? He went out with his wife. And what did he do? He drank. Mm-hmm. And so that's the power of seeing, first of all, what alcohol does to our stress levels and to our HRV, and the incredible detrimental effect it has. But number two, how you can take this data to really understand how your lifestyle is directly affecting your health, your vitality, and your energy. So I love using the HeartMath device. It's a device where you can use it at home to practice breathing, practice calming mindfulness techniques to help improve coherence and improve heart rate variability. And so this is a tool that you can actually use on a regular basis at home. There's a Bluetooth one you can use with your phone, or one that connects to your laptop as well. And this biofeedback and breath training allows you to train yourself to become mindful, to breathe properly as well, like we talked about before with the nasal breathing. And also it helps increase your heart rate variability. So I love the HeartMath device.
How does that actually work?
So you put an earlobe sensor on, and it actually senses your heart rate, and you can watch. There are several different games you could play with it, or you can just watch the display where it goes up and down, and you practice breathing, and you focus on gratitude. The whole point of it is to focus on create positive energy, focus on pleasant thoughts and gratitude, and focus on your breathing. And you can't screw it up because it tells you when to breathe, it tells you how to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch, as you practice with it, you can watch your heart rate variability improve.
Nice.
As a direct objective measure of how your heart rate variability is improving with mindfulness techniques.
Now, is that something, if somebody wants to do that, would they also need an Oura Ring or Garmin Phoenix or something like that to track on a daily basis? Or could they get away with just doing the HeartMath thing?
Yeah, the thing about heart rate variability is it changes throughout the day. It changes with activity. It changes with everything you do. And so to accurately measure heart rate variability, you have to either track it 24/7, which is not necessarily feasible for most people. The Garmin will actually check it at multiple data points throughout the day and summarize. The Oura actually checks it at night. They make straps where you can check HRV first thing in the morning. When you wake up, you put it on, and after 2 minutes, you can get a very accurate measure of HRV. So it's not really helpful to necessarily look at it at different points throughout the day, because it's not going to be reliable as a tool to compare from one day to the next. HeartMath is really used more to train your body to improve your stress response and to increase stress resilience, and that will improve your heart rate variability over time.
Got it.
So to answer your question, yes, I would use a HeartMath, and I would definitely track it as well.
Got it. Is it possible to do the same sort of practice without buying any device?
You certainly could. You could just do nasal breathing. You could focus on gratitude. You could practice meditation on your own, and yoga and mindfulness techniques and relaxation, and do all that stuff. Absolutely. And those are all, when I had the puzzle pieces, those are general recommendations for everyone. So you're absolutely right. Without question, everyone can use that.
Yeah. I'm a fan of both. I'm a fan of, measuring heart rate variability through various devices. I measure it just with one single daily measurement with a chest strap and an app on my phone. And then, and obviously the HeartMath is great as well. I think just right now, with whatever the latest count is, 25 million people losing their jobs. I know there's a lot of people sensitive right now to having to buy anything. So I just wanted to emphasize, I think that there are practices that you can do for free. There are videos with pranayama breathing exercises, coherence exercises, heart rate variability training exercises, yoga, lots of different free practices available online. So I don't want people to feel like they have to get these devices, but certainly being able to track the data, being able to see the improvements, being able to see your heart rate variability improving over time is certainly a beautiful and very helpful thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. It starts with those basic fundamentals, obviously, for those who are willing and able to take it to the next level. And, what I call MEL 2.0, then these are the tools that I would recommend. But you're right. Yeah. For some people, they can't do that. And you're right that there are a lot of things they can do without buying any devices whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's look at sleep. I love tracking sleep. The Oura is actually a little better than the Garmin in terms of accuracy, but I love them both. What's important about sleep, first of all, men sleep like crap. Men just don't get good sleep, or if they tell me they do, then they're lying. Because in general, men, unless they really focus on sleep hygiene techniques and all the stuff that we talked about earlier, and that I know you emphasize in all your teachings as well, they're not going to sleep well. And it's not just the quantity of sleep. People tend to focus on, I slept 7 hours, or I slept, 6 hours, or the time is to some perspective important, but more than that is the quality of sleep. And I focus on the quality way more than the quantity. And I'll show you what I mean by that. You'll see here on the display that there are different colors on that graph. And those correspond to deep sleep, which is the dark blue in the bottom, light sleep, which is just above it, and then the purple is the REM sleep. And throughout the night, you'll go through various stages of sleep. You'll go from REM sleep to light down to deep, and then you'll come back up again, light and then to REM. And you'll go through about 3 or 4 cycles of this throughout the night. And what's really important to understand is the deep sleep and the REM sleep are incredibly restorative, each in their own manner. And they're each important for different reasons. And so unless you're getting good quality sleep and you're getting good deep sleep and REM sleep, you won't have the same benefit of that night of sleep otherwise. So this is a great example. The picture on the left from August 22nd through 28th, this client had pretty good sleep. You know, you look at the deep sleep, he had 1 hour and 4 minutes of deep sleep, and he had 2 hours and 2 minutes on average of REM sleep. That's actually pretty good. You know, we look for about a 3-hour combined deep plus REM sleep as an indicator of fairly good sleep. On the right, you'll see this is another client who slept for 7 hours, and he was so proud of it. But you look at this day and look how much deep sleep he got, 9 minutes of deep sleep. So that entire night, he's waking up, he's not getting good sleep. This guy happened to drink the night before. And this shows you the damage that alcohol does to your sleep, where you think you're asleep the whole night, but you're really not. Mm-hmm. And so again, without tracking this data, without using these tools, these very valuable biometric monitors, you would never know that you're getting crappy sleep. And so I really focus to optimize men's health and improve energy. You got to get good sleep. And it starts with understanding where you are.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning, I almost interrupted you a little earlier when you were talking about hormones. A lot of people have a disconnect between, lifestyle habits and hormones. And they immediately think, oh, my hormones are off. I need to either take the hormone, let's say I have low testosterone, I need to get on testosterone, or I need to take Tribulus or whatever herb for testosterone. And they don't necessarily connect the dots. People aren't aware that sleep and circadian rhythm has a massive impact on your hormones. Nutrition has a massive impact on your hormones. Your stress levels have a massive impact on your hormones. And people aren't aware of just how intertwined their daily habits are with the hormonal outcomes are. I think they're just in a lot of people's minds, there's a disconnect there where they see the hormones as like, okay, if hormones are off, then I need to do the hormone specific thing for that hormone. It's unrelated to my habits. You know what I mean?
I cannot agree more, Ari. It's a systems-based approach, and people are not familiar with that term, but what that means is all of these systems in your body are intertwined. I love you use that word. They're all connected. And your testosterone level is going to suck if you're sleeping like that picture on the right there. And it's so important that you focus on every system in the body to get them all working. Like the phrase, your body is a symphony. And you have to get all the instruments working properly for the symphony to sound right. And so I completely agree that you need to focus on every aspect of it. And if one is out of balance, the entire system's going to go off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that about the perspective you're bringing to this. You're mentioning so many different things, gut health and nutrition and, various gene abnormalities and the quality of your sleep. And people are like, well, just tell me how to, whatever supplement I need to take to fix my testosterone. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
It's not that easy.
The body is a system that the only way to accurately and intelligently conceptualize, these hormonal abnormalities or these symptoms like fatigue or like low libido or whatever else is through looking at the entire system. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate that about
absolutely. Yeah.
The perspective you're bringing to this.
Sure. Peptides, the fun part. This is I put this last because it's the icing on top. And as amazing as peptides are, I want to emphasize that peptides are not the magic pill. They're amazing. They have incredible benefits, but you need to understand that unless you've done everything we've talked about up until now, peptides won't help you. They can't save you. Okay. So what are peptides? Peptides are simply chains of amino acids. Okay. You can connect anywhere from 2 to 100 amino acids together, and it's called a peptide. And these amino acid chains are signaling molecules. And they're signals that your body already recognizes because they're simply amino acids put together. And so these peptides have very specific function, very specific receptors and very specific outcomes. And so that's what's so beautiful about peptides is we can have a very precise approach to the individual client. There are tons of benefits of peptides. I've listed just a few of them here that are relevant. Number one, improving energy. You talked earlier about growth hormone. I'll talk about that in just a moment, but improving energy, I don't like giving growth hormone. I like using GHRH peptides and GHRH analogs that will stimulate your own body's internal production of not just growth hormone, but GHRH. There's something called a pleiotropic effect. That means that GHRH, its job is not just to produce growth hormone, but it actually goes around the body and has functions similar to growth hormone itself as well. And so if you give growth hormone through negative feedback, you're turning off GHRH. And so you're actually hurting yourself from the incredible benefits of GHRH, growth hormone releasing hormone. And so these peptides are amazing in that sense, in that they're helping your body naturally produce the hormones that you need to improve energy. There are peptides to reduce inflammation. BPC 157 is one that I use every day, and it's amazing for both your gut health, for the microbiome. And there's also BPC 157 that you can inject for musculoskeletal repair, joint repair, repair from injury, repair from surgery.
Did you say you use it orally every day?
I use it almost every day.
Wow.
Absolutely.
On an ongoing basis, not cycling it?
No, I'll cycle it. Yeah, I'll use BPC when I need it. I'll give you a great story. I rolled my ankle last year, and nothing helped for about 3 months. I could not run. I could walk, but it was painful, and it wasn't broken. It was just a very bad high ankle sprain. And I started BPC, and a week later it was gone, like just magic. And up until then, I was like, yeah, I've heard BPC is okay, but you really need to do the injectable. I don't know about the oral. After that, I was a true believer that it's amazing.
Yeah.
I've had a number of men come to see me for various complaints, but one of them is irritable bowel. And I'll start them on BPC 157, and they'll come back a month later and they're completely fine. And they even forgot they had any gut issues.
After like years of suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
These guys were dealing with it for years, and it's just gone. So it's almost magical in that sense, but I want to be careful when I say that, because peptides do not replace bad lifestyle.
Yeah.
They don't make up for bad lifestyle. So,
the thing with peptides worth mentioning, since you talked about oral and injectable, a lot of the peptides for people listening are only bioavailable when injected, and not orally bioavailable. So this one, which is really good for healing, connective tissue injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, as well as gut issues, this BPC 157 happens to have, the last time I saw some literature on this, it showed about 50% bioavailability when taken orally, as compared to about close to 100% bioavailability when injected, which is like pros and cons, right? It's like you can avoid injecting it for people who don't like injecting. And I'm one of those people. I don't like injecting anything. But it's you got to take twice as much of it to get the same dose, since it's only 50% bioavailable. Anyway, if you have any, if you want to correct anything I said there that's wrong, that's my understanding.
You're exactly right. In general, most peptides are injectable. There are very few that are actually oral. BPC is great, specifically oral BPC for the gut microbiome, because obviously it's going through the gut, and so it's going to affect the leaky gut and the tight junctions of the mucosa of the gut. And so that anti-inflammatory effect on the gut is most beneficial taken orally, actually. Whereas if you are looking for musculoskeletal benefit, typically the injectable is going to give you more bang for the buck. But most of the peptides are definitely injectable. C-Link is a great one. It's a nasal spray that's part of my immune boosting peptide package that I've been promoting, and I use myself for coronavirus as well. That's a nasal spray.
I know that one has brain boosting benefits. I didn't know it has any immune effects as well.
Yeah, C-Link has some antiviral effect. It's great for anxiety. It's great for sleep as well. But I combine that with a couple of the peptides. When I don't know if I've shared this, but I had coronavirus last month, and I recovered, and I believe that peptides were a huge factor in my recovery.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure this will be a digression, but well, first of all, are you sure you had coronavirus? You got tested?
Well, I had flu-like symptoms. I got tested positive, symptoms
Okay.
resolved. I got tested negative. So yeah.
Did it get really bad?
Interestingly, I had it for about 24, 36 hours or so of shaking chills, temperature of 100, body aches, no respiratory symptoms whatsoever.
Great.
I've had some pretty bad fatigue issues since then, which have mostly cleared. But for a couple of days there, it was rough. And for that week, I was out of work, and my mind was just couldn't focus on anything. Mine was gone. Yeah.
Interesting. So, I'm sure that you could talk about this for an hour, but real quick, could you give like your top 3 to 5 things that you think are most helpful for boosting immune function in the context of preventing coronavirus?
Oh, sure. Without question, TA1 would be the first one. Thymosin alpha-1 is without question the best peptide for immune boosting, especially, for coronavirus. I think it's valuable for immune boosting for prevention. And that's done. You could do a very low dose injection every day, or you could even do an injection every third day.
Is it only injectable?
It's only injectable. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when I got sick that Friday night, when I got sick and I was pretty sure that I had it, I started doing it every night. And so thymosin alpha can be taken either every third day or every day. Has amazing benefits when it comes to upregulating Treg cells, which are the T cells that help kind of regulate your immune response so that it doesn't go crazy. And there have been decades worth of studies on thymosin alpha looking at its amazing benefits in autoimmune disease, HIV, and in viral infections like corona. So TA1 without question was a great one. LL37 is one that's really good for gut health as well, and for reducing the ability of the virus to attach to the cells. And it's helpful from an antiviral perspective as well. So LL37 was one that I loved. Again, C-Link nasal spray was one that I use as well. And then Pentosan is another one. Pentosan helps reduce the virus capabilities once it does attach to the cell, prevents it from entering the cell.
Interesting. I hadn't heard of that. Pentosan. Yeah. So
those are all great peptides, and that's just specifically for immunity. And so, of my list here on the screen, I can go through, 3 to 5 peptides of every single category. And so that's what's fun about peptides is it's a very personalized approach that we can use to achieve, whatever our desired outcome is. So I love peptides. They are the future of medicine. There's really a word of caution here, and that is that peptides should really only be obtained through a physician. There are a lot of research-grade peptides that are out there that you can get on the black market or online, and there's been a lot of question regarding quality control and purity of the product. And if you're injecting something in your body, you want to know what the hell it is, and so go through a physician, one who knows what they're doing with peptides. And
having said that, most physicians have no training in peptides and very little knowledge of that. So you have to seek out a physician who specifically has taken extra steps to train and educate themselves around peptides and understands what they do and knows which ones to prescribe and dosing and all that. If somebody's interested in doing that, can they reach out to you for that? Do you work with people via telemedicine consults?
I do telemedicine consults. They can reach out to me. I'm in Florida. And so from a medical licensure standpoint, I can only manage clients in Florida unless they want to come see me once physically in person. You can also check out the International Peptide Society, and they can direct you to physicians in your state who are licensed or who are skilled at prescribing peptides as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah. So in summary, I'm sorry I've gone over, Ari. I tried to keep it short.
It was my fault. I took you off track a few times, but very very insightful stuff.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
So, the old model, what I call MEL 1.0, it's reactive to disease. You're either sick or you're not, and that's it. It's one size fits all approach. What's the latest diet fad? Is it bulletproof today? Is it low fat diet tomorrow? What's it going to be? You're guessing, and it's based on drugs. The MEL
today it's vegan, tomorrow it's carnivore.
That's right, exactly.
And then 3 days from now, it'll be a vegan carnivore diet. Figure that one out.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that one. The MEL 2.0 approach, and that's actually the name of my book that'll be coming out very soon, is MEL 2.0, is taking a health-driven, focused approach. It's focused on optimization. There's way more than not being sick. And this is what took me 15 years of medical practice to learn this. Actually, it's amazing. Medical doctors are just not taught this stuff. We're taught how to treat your symptom and how to stamp out disease, and that's it. And you're done, and I'll see you later. And so understanding that health optimization is an entirely new way of approaching your health and expanding your energy and longevity. It's personalized. It's using data to take a very individualized approach, using fun, cool, cutting edge technology like wearables and using peptides. So guys come in to me with these complaints. I can relate to a guy that has one of these complaints or has all six, because I see it every day in my practice. And this approach can help guys with all these complaints optimize and achieve superhuman energy. So I ask guys, which way you want to go? You want to keep doing what you're doing, or do you want to try something different? So I do have for you here today, I have a free offer. It's just a download for you to the Mel 2.0 Men's Guide to Achieving Superhuman Energy. You can check out my website, and that's the link to get the free download. Beautiful.
And what's the link, just for people listening who are not watching?
The link, I'm sorry, it's drtracygapin.com. That's drtracygapin.com/energy.
Dr. Gapin, one last thing before you go. You've covered a huge amount of ground here. Some people, I'm sure, maybe feel overwhelmed with the amount of different tools and, areas that they could potentially start to try to address based on the information you just talked about. Sure. What would be, and I know this is a tough question, but what would be your top 3 biggest, must-do things from this talk? Like, if you just had to quickly list off your top 3 things that all men listening to this should focus on, what would be your top 3?
Yeah, great question, Ari. Number 1 is sleep. Without question, I think the most important thing that people need to focus on is getting good quality sleep. And so focus on sleep, focus on practicing good hygiene. And if you don't have, the genetics and all the other tools, then do the best you can to get good quality sleep by practicing good sleep hygiene. If you can track it, that's amazing. And use that data to figure out what it is that's crushing your sleep, because getting good quality sleep is so massive when it comes to getting good energy and, improving your vitality. Number 2 is the stress component. Especially with this coronavirus environment, with the economic impact it's having, the health impact, the loss of social connection and engagement with your friends and family is affecting people as well. Mm-hmm. And so focusing on stress mitigation, finding things that you enjoy and doing them, scheduling. I have a schedule with my family. They know when I'm working, when I'm going to be with them, and when I'm playing. And that schedule allows you to make sure that you have appropriated time for what's important. And leisure is so critically important. I see executives and entrepreneurs all the time, and they're grinding 80 hours a week working to make a buck, and they're not taking time to enjoy life. And whether it's playing tennis, whether it's going for a run, whether it's doing whatever you like to do it and enjoy life. And a lot of that's going to help with stress mitigation. Practice the deep breathing. Practice some mindfulness technique, meditation. People think it's woo-woo. Men hate meditation because they think it's too soft. I do meditation every day before I come home from work. I stop and I do 5 minutes of meditation. It's amazing. So sleep and stress are massive. And then I'm going to go with a little nugget I shared in the very beginning, and that is intermittent fasting, time-restricted feeding. Your body needs rest. Your body needs to not be constantly getting food shoved inside it. So intermittent fasting, people talk about a 16-8 window where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window. I actually push that myself to an 18-hour fast and a 6-hour window. And by doing that, by restricting your feedings, you're giving your body time to practice autophagy, to take out the trash, so to speak, to reset itself. And it's going to give you more energy. It's going to help you lose weight, and you're going to feel amazing.
Beautiful. Dr. Gapin, thank you so much. This was awesome. Really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. That link, again, is Dr. Tracy Gapin.
Yeah, my website is drtracygapin.com. It's gapin.com/energy for the free download.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It was great to connect with you, and you're awesome. This was excellent information.
I enjoyed it. You got it, bud.
Hey there, this is Ari again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you found it valuable, please share it with your friends, share it with your family, help me get the word out there. Also, if you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell to get notifications every time we release a new video or new episode of the podcast. And if you're listening to this, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for supporting my work at the Energy Blueprint. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you in the next